Welcome back to the show, everyone. I have got Dr. George Kanugris with me from the PCA Medical Group. Welcome to the show. We're going to talk all things cardiology, right?
Yes.
But first, Dr. George Kanugris. I love that name.
You call me Dr. George or Dr. K, that's okay.
I like Kanugris.
All right, that's good.
Because I can pronounce it.
That's a good thing. I'm proud of you.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I'm a board-certified cardiologist. I've been practicing in the area here for about over 25 years. And in the last 15 years, I've been specializing in CT scanning and coronary calcium scoring. I'm board-certified in cardiac imaging as well. And that's been my focus of interest, along as general cardiology as well.
Mm-hmm. So before we started rolling tape, earlier we were talking about why you decided to go into this field. I thought that was a very interesting perspective.
Yeah. So I've been an avid exerciser all of my life, and I majored in exercise physiology. And then I decided to go to medical school to pursue further studies, and especially dealing with the heart, the exercise aspect of prevention of heart disease and how the heart adapts to exercise. And so that's how I got into cardiology.
And do you feel like when people understand how the heart really works, they're more apt to take care of themselves better and engage in physical activity?
We wish to like to say that, yes, I think so.
Yes. Well, we can only hope. We can only hope. So I think we all know heart disease risk increases as we age.
Correct.
Right? So what are the most common things that you see in older adults?
With the audience here, I kind of divide the older adults or seniors into kind of like three age groups, especially Laguna Woods. I have the young seniors that are, say, 55 to, let's say, 75. These are kind of arbitrary cutoffs I use. And then 75 to maybe 85 is the middle-aged seniors, and then above 85 is the older seniors, because certainly there's a different perspective that a 55-year-old would have versus a 95-year-old. And you do have those populations here in Laguna Woods, so I think I go along those lines. So the younger population would be more concerned, I think, about preventing heart disease or getting a heart attack or having something happen to themselves or a stroke, whereas the older population is more interested in probably more quality of life. They may have had a heart attack or had something already. Their concern is, how am I going to live the rest of my life? Will I need oxygen? Will I be on a walker? Am I going to have another heart attack? What's going to be the quality of my life? As opposed to a younger person says, I'm going to try to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, and I think even in education for the older adults, because I wouldn't have thought that you need a walker or oxygen, or like what are the consequences after you have a heart attack of what your life is going to be like?
Well, that would be the more extreme with someone has congestive heart failure, a weak heart muscle from numerous heart attacks or insults and that type of thing. And usually that can happen at a younger age, but usually talking about an older patient that may become debilitated if they don't try to prevent it. And the problem is, a lot of people think, well, my parents lived to be 100, I don't have any problems. And then once they get to be, say, 80 or so, they've had a heart attack. And now they say, wait a minute, I wish I had prevented it sooner. Now I've had a heart attack. Now what do I do? So prevention's a big key. Can you give us 3 or 4 ways that we can prevent? Yeah, I think the main thing would be, first of all, choose your parents wisely. That would be the first. And the second one would be probably diet's very important. More plant-based diet, lower carbohydrates, saturated fats. Then physical and mental activity, which you certainly have the opportunity here in Laguna Woods with all of the educational and recreational and swimming pools, gyms, et cetera, walking, et cetera. So being very active, being mentally engaged, eating the right foods. I think and having a positive outlook. So I think those are the most important things. All of those contributing factors. Yeah.
Do you see that there's more heart disease in America versus any other country?
Probably, if we look at the statistics, I would say yes, but we're a pretty large population with a heterogeneous group of people, different ethnic backgrounds and what have you. But more of the industrialized world has a similar heart.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, kind of a risk as we do, the more industrialized world.
Right.
We do. But there's slightly lower risks in Europe and other rates because of ethnic factors and the way they live their life and food sources. For example, in Europe, there's more walking, more plant-based diets, different lifestyle compared to the United States.
And a lot of their food is acquired that day. It's
very,
very
fresh. We could get, that's a whole whole nother animal to talk about. That's true.
Absolutely.
But they do have a garden in Laguna Woods. You can grow your own food in Laguna Woods.
I love that.
They have the garden.
Absolutely.
So we can take care of that.
So you mentioned a bit ago about calcium scoring. Can you explain to us in simple terms what that is?
So it's called the CT coronary calcium score. So the patient goes in a CT scanner, which is an X-ray machine. I think many people are familiar with it. It's a tube. It's not a tunnel like an MRI scanner. It's a tube. You lay on a table. You go in the machine. You hold your breath, and the scan is over in 5 or 6 seconds. It's a breath hold. There's no contrast injected, and there's as much radiation as your yearly background radiation you're flying, say, cross-country in an airplane. So it's very low radiation. And the scan looks at calcium deposits in the coronary arteries, that is atherosclerosis. So you talk about the different people say, oh, I have diabetes, I have this, I have that. Those are risk factors. This is a risk factor also, but it actually shows you how much disease you have and kind of grossly gives you cardiac age or coronary age for your particular chronologic age.
Interesting. So could somebody go to have that scan just to find out if there's any concern?
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's how the scan first came about. Like get this heart scan. It's not really a screening test. It's not really advised for everybody. So for example, mammograms would be advised for all women, colonoscopies for all people at certain age groups. This is not a screening test. We use it under 2 circumstances. If someone has early family history of heart disease in their relatives, mother, father, brothers, sisters, and the groups here in Laguna Woods, older children, if they've had a heart attack or stroke at, say, 50, 60 years of age, and they don't really have ostensibly any other risk factors, they may want to get a calcium score to see how high it is. And then we have another group of patients who have some risk factors, age, smoking, diabetes, obesity, et cetera, all the classical risk factors, and their doctor's recommending a certain therapy for them. There's ways to calculate what their risk is. I'm not going to go into that today, but there's tools we use to calculate risk based on population studies, and some of those people may fall into a low or intermediate risk based on these scores we use, but if you get a calcium score, you can further stratify their risk to a little more precisely because you're now actually seeing calcium in the arteries rather than predicting who has the calcium.
And doctor, is that when you say calcium, is that the actual mineral buildup?
Yes, mineral buildup. So people get confused. This is it's kind of not really microscopic, but small calcium in your bloodstream. It's got nothing to do with calcium, osteoporosis, intake of calcium supplements. When cholesterol deposits in the walls of the artery, it's deemed foreign or it causes an inflammatory reaction. Just the same way in your joints, you get inflammatory reaction from arthritis, then calcium's deposited to kind of heal that or kind of calm that inflammatory response down. And that's what you're picking up with the calcium score.
Interesting. And so if plaque is found in the lining of the arteries, what can be done?
Well, once you have calcium deposited, whatever that calcium is, that doesn't go away. What you want to do is prevent more cholesterol buildup and then more calcium, which could eventually lead to a blockage of the coronary artery and cause a heart attack.
Is that when you would go in and put a stent to
That would be,
open that up?
along those lines, yes.
Interesting.
So we're trying to prevent the disease. So this would be in asymptomatic patients who we're trying to prevent the disease when we think there may be a higher risk for the disease. Family history, certain risk factors. The patients may be averse to taking a positive reaction. Oh, I don't want to eat a better diet. I don't want to take these pills.
Right.
I want to sit around and watch TV.
Right.
This is be a more motivational to say, wait a minute, hey, you actually have disease. So a calcium score of 0, if you don't see any calcium, that's a pretty strong risk predictor that you don't have probably a very low risk for getting heart disease. But over time, that may change. You may have a 0, say, score when you're 55. That doesn't mean eat, drink, and be merry. You're never going to have a heart attack. That's just at this level of time, probably good for like 5 years, and then you could recheck it. Also, the calcium score, unlike other risk factors, is there are nomograms for ethnic background. There's for Black, Hispanic, and Chinese.
Oh, interesting.
So there is a risk stratification, which are other risk factors are more geared toward average white American males and also females with the calcium score. So it does divide the people up in a little more. It's a more precise risk stratification.
In your studies and throughout your years of working with your patients, have you found that the ones that were more sedentary, who come in and you're finding these diseases, has that sort of been the culprit or the lead into?
Sedentary lifestyle, also diet. Diet's pretty important.
It's pretty important.
Pretty important. And the diabetes, and then obesity, and it's linked to diabetes. So those type of risk factors. So if a patient has a very high risk, let's say they already had a heart attack, or they're diabetic, they're obese, they smoke, et cetera, we would not really use a calcium score because or they have excessively high cholesterol. The calcium score becomes a little less useful because there's a high probability that if they don't have disease now, they're going to get disease. So you treat those people without a calcium score as a rule, but you can still use it in certain instances.
Wow, so much to learn. Thank you for joining me. Where can people find you if they need to come?
Well, Pacific Cardiovascular Associates are right here in Laguna Hills, right down the street.
Fantastic. Do they need a prescription from their primary care?
Well, usually for the calcium score, yes, but again, it is commercially available. Certain companies advertise or doctors advertise it for $99, and they can go in and get the test done.
Oh, wow. Well, that's.
But I think you want to use it under the guidance of a doctor or cardiologist to put it in perspective. There's a lot more that goes to it than just the score. Okay. You have to take a look at the whole person. It's just one piece. We're trying to prevent disease and tailor our treatment, our prevention strategies for that particular patient. So the calcium score kind of allows us, since we don't have a crystal ball, this is about as close as we can get to a crystal ball, to kind of predicting what's going to happen to you specifically.
Interesting. Well, we all want to know, right?
Yes.
We all want that crystal ball.
Yes. Now, if I could know, I wouldn't be here talking. I'd be making a lot of money knowing, but.
All right, Dr. Canigris, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're very welcome.
PCA Associates. You're watching This Day on Village TV. We'll be back after these messages.
For nearly 40 years, Pacific Cardiovascular Associates has been the leading cardiovascular clinic serving Laguna Hills and Laguna Woods. At PCA, our board-certified heart specialists provide compassionate care, from initial consultations to routine follow-ups and more. We offer echocardiograms, stress tests, vascular studies, and pacemaker checks, all in one convenient location. With free parking and full wheelchair accessibility, PCA makes care easier than ever. Visit our website or give us a call to schedule your appointment today.